So before my first college physics exam, our professor told us we could bring a page of notes with anything we wanted on it, and we could write on all 6 sides. It was his way of explaining to us that we had to learn to look at the world in a really different way. A lot of times we see the world very two-dimensional and with a single point of perspective. I grew up in a place that looked a lot like this, and a lot of people think it's really boring, dull, lifeless. But I really learned to look at things in a different way. When I was a kid, I would go outside and look up at millions of stars and see the Milky Way. And sometimes, if I was really lucky, I'd see the Northern Lights. And I learned to see myself as really small. And yet, at the same time, it was really interesting that here I was in this vast universe. It's really interesting seeing things in 3 dimensions and from different perspectives. We can kind of take our world and turn it around and look at it in different ways and see what's the same and what's different. Kids are amazing at this. They're always upside down and twisting and turning and upside down, imagining what it would be like to live on the ceiling and, playing with different realities. And there are other ways we can do this too. We can learn to listen to each other. Not just to the loudest and biggest voices, but to the little ones, the people we don't normally hear, the people who don't come from the same socioeconomic background or the same country or don't look like us or feel like us or have the same beliefs. And a lot of times this gets really uncomfortable. The world just seems all kind of wonky. Like, what are we doing here? What is this? But that place of uncomfortableness is where empathy comes from. Sometimes, though, when I listen to the loud voices and the outrage of the day, I kind of find myself feeling all the different emotions. I'm scared and I'm angry, and then my fear turns to anger, and my anger turns to fear, and I'm just disgusted and sad with the whole thing. And a lot of times, that sort of thing ends up like this. When I look at this picture, I don't just see a kid who was arrested for making something really cool. I see that somebody, somewhere, was afraid, and that fear turned to anger, and that anger needed a target. But that doesn't mean that all anger is bad, because sometimes anger can show us what needs to change and what needs to be different, and show us the path we need to take and where we need to put our talents and interests. And keeping that focus on that path, it's a lot like mountain biking. If we stay focused on that path, we get to where we're going, and we have a lot of fun doing it. But if we look at the prickly bits on the side, that's usually where we end up, and sometimes it's really painful. Mr. Rogers told me a lot about focus, too. He showed us that, he told us that when he was a boy, his mom told him that when bad things happen, he should look for the helpers, and that we can be helpers, too. But sometimes it kind of feels like, is anything I'm doing helping? But one little thing upon one little thing upon one little thing all adds up together, and that's the sort of energy that gives us what fuels the sun and the stars and makes all our known life possible. That same physics professor, Judah Schwartz, also taught us about frames of reference, that one person in one frame of reference and another person in another frame of reference see things really differently, and they have different origins, and they have different velocities. For example, a person on a train that's moving sees themselves as standing still, and the world is going past. But a person on the platform sees himself as standing still and the train going past. And the really cool thing is they're both right. And so this leads to interesting things. Like if I spin around, you'll see me spinning, but I'll see you spinning. And if I jump up and down, am I moving myself or am I moving the universe? Yeah, now you're getting it. So we can learn to look at ourselves this way. This is Buckminster Fuller's Dymaxion map, or Dymaxion globe. And the cool thing is each of these facets is a more accurate map than we've seen, than we have before. And when that's all spread out, it looks like this. And the reason Fuller chose this representation is because this map shows that we're not all divided by vast oceans. In fact, we're connected each to each other and through each other. And we can see ourselves in this way, too. This is the pale blue dot. That's Earth right there. This pale blue dot is talked about by Carl Sagan, and that picture is taken from the very edge of the solar system. All of us, all of humanity is on that tiny little dot. And that should make us feel very small, but it should also show us that we are more vast than we ever imagined.